Tickets, please. Once you have subscribed to this channel, please make your way into Screen 1 for all things film and TV from Rebellious Noise. Screenings will include exclusive interviews, fun reviews, and in-depth features, as well as the latest news from the big and small screen. So grab yourself a bag of popcorn, sit back, relax, and enjoy the shows.
Hello. It is Scott, and I am joined by Lucas. Hello, Lucas.
Hello, Scott. You're right.
I'm good. We are here to talk about the finale of Mare of Easttown. This is the first and only series, and we'll be getting into that in a bit, I'm sure. Mare of Easttown has just wrapped up here in the UK. The official, I guess, prime time screening of it has just ended. Obviously, we can watch it in the American time, but that's difficult. But it does give you the opportunity to watch it on demand in a day. So, we're going to be touching on our thoughts on the final episode and on the series in general. This is RN Screen 1, a film and TV dedicated channel from Rebellious Noise. And if you're new here, like everyone is, because we're a new channel, then please subscribe. We're just going to get straight into it. I mean, okay, first, we'll go instant reactions, and then we'll work backwards, and then we'll kind of mix it about. But first reactions, I guess, on the last few things we saw. How do you think it ended?
Okay, so obviously we have to again preface this, by the way. This is live. It's a live match just happened, or to some people. So if you are watching maybe on a delay or something, and you haven't finished it, then you are about to get some spoilers. So maybe tune out now and come back.
Definitely watch the show first.
Come back once you've watched it all. But look, even though I messaged you earlier saying that I didn't like it, I'm now going to come around, because I watched it a little bit earlier in the evening. I'm now going to come around to it, as although it did something very similar to what another show like this did, called Broadchurch. They had an American version too called Grace Point, but it wasn't too well received. But Broadchurch, the original, with having basically the main character's best friend essentially be the killer. And it can seem kind of cheap when it is this whole kind of like it was an accident kind of thing. He didn't mean to do it. And we're talking about Ryan. He was revealed as the killer, and that he took the gun, that he was the only other person who had access to, obviously, the shed that kept the gun. And it was a complete accident, what happened with him and Aaron. And the episode ends with, obviously, Ryan being sent to juvenile prison, as I think he's 13, I think, on the show.
Yeah, I think so.
And then that follows Mare, speaking with Laurie and having a very kind of conversation, which goes like, with Laurie kind of being a bit like, I don't really want to talk to you anymore, deal with you anymore. But they reconcile a couple months later in this. And I thought that the actual ending shot was amazing. The actual ending kind of thing of Mare kind of going finally into the attic for this purpose of this broadcast. I thought that was phenomenal. But I'm not too sure how. I think I'm still processing, to be fair, because this show's been so heavy.
And early on as well, we got some big kind of turns where it seemed like, oh no, I think a lot of it was like, oh, that's going to be too obvious if they do that. When it looks like Mare's ex-husband, then it looks like it's the priest, and then it looks like one brother, and then it looks like Dylan, and then they kind of go a bit too obvious with it at times. So I'm glad, especially some of those, I'm glad we didn't go down that kind of route, because I feel like if it was the ex-husband, it would have been dragged out the whole series. The priest one, my eyes rolled straight away. I thought, please don't be going down this this route. It just seems such an obvious and cheap story to tell. And then I think being the kid was good as a shock, in the sense that I didn't want it to be an accident. In these kind of things, you want like I guess, justice. I guess you want it to be the bad guy, but then the bad guy gets put away or whatever else, you know. So some sort of justice. As a kid, it's hard to feel that way. But I think if you're gonna do it as a kid, having him just be like, I was sick of him breaking up my family, I hated Aaron for it, was a bit too far, you know. Like he's still a kid, you know. Like I mean, like this, they still use that emotion of you know, she was breaking up my family and I didn't want it to happen. But they used it in a clever way where I think, the kid basically, like you say, be an accident is probably the best way to do it. And like you say, that final shot of Mare going up there, because this is what I liked about this show, actually. There was a lot of stories that just kind of like intertwined with each other because they are, like, it's just a small community, and I think the show really showed off that it's a small community. Obviously, helps with the end scenes at the church again, which shows all the characters from the show, kind of like, and he's talking about the community and whatever else. But I think that's what was really good about it. The fact that it didn't have to be, although you had your twists and your turns and the murder cases and the mysteries. I think after a few episodes, I realized this is about the town more than it's about the murder. You know.
Well, I'll tell you, not just the town, but about Mare, about her story.
Yeah. You
know, and obviously, you know, it's very easy here in these kind of series, I think, for the detectives on the case to kind of be the focus. And, you know, this did go down that direction quite a lot. I liked the fact that a lot of the kind of stuff you'd associate with a final episode actually happened much earlier. So we've obviously got the reveal of the girls, in a fantastically short episode. That was episode 5, wasn't it? When I think it might have been 4, because at the end you figure out, because 5's the one where Zabel dies, because then we had another one since then. So even that one, I mean, my goodness, Zabel dying, which you know, I'm sure we're going to get into more. But just touching on what you say about like kind of like that, the heavy hitters, you know, finding out. And I like that as well. I like that we found out on episode 4. It was kind of obvious at the end of it, this isn't linked to Aaron. You know, like I like that, because it just seemed, again, too obvious to be like, oh, there's a missing girl, they're linked. You know, I like that there were 2 stories. Well, there were many stories, but there were 2 murder stories, I guess. Yeah, I think is what it kind of showed that, you know, going back to what, you know, your point about the town, though, it's kind of just showing that, look, this, you know, everyone has their little troubles, the little struggles they're going through. And it's okay for it not to have this kind of ultimate kind of happy ending. At the end of the day here, Dylan's still a bad guy. Like, Dylan's still a bad guy in this. You know? He treated Aaron awfully, you know, throughout their relationship together. And, you know, he's now having to deal with the fact that, you know, there's been accusations made against him. He's got very bad company hanging around him. You know, so his life, you know, post this, he's not the good guy here. You know, the priest as well. Like, he's still got the demons, you know, from obviously the allegations that were made against him at his last position. And they're coming into this position, and now the town knows. You know, so he's not the good guy over here. You know, that's very important to know. They haven't done like a whole thing of like, oh, the priest was acquitted and now everyone loves him. Yeah, like no one's like fully looked like, oh, it turns out you are great. You know, like there's still concerns, like you say. I mean, that stuff from where the priest was before, that's followed him. But I like that they don't fully go into that. That it is like, it's down to you to decide. He's come with this baggage. Was he just innocently trying to get away from a difficult situation somewhere else where he was wrongly accused? Or was there something going on? There's still that thing lingering. And then it's like, oh, and if they jumped on him because of this? And is that wrong? You know, it's just one of those things where it's kind of like, realistically, which doesn't happen in TV shows a lot of things are just handled the wrong way. You know, a lot of things, just people just make the wrong decisions, maybe for the right or the wrong reason. And I think, again, they touch on that with the kid at the end as well. Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, like at the end of the day, you know, this is a show that makes you have to think about kind of these things afterwards, but in a good way. And knowing that obviously having to be satisfied with the fact that, you know, we're not getting a happy ending. You know, to this show, but that's the joy of it, I guess. In a way, that's the brilliance of this. The fact that they've ended something, you know, where we haven't got that closure, but Mare has. You know, it was like a healing ending, wasn't it? Like, because we care about Mare and we knew she needed that, we could settle like, okay.
at the end of it, you know.
And I mean, you know, we have to just admit, like, Kate Winslet, my God, what a performance in this.
Wow.
All the way through.
Yeah.
You know, and just the fact that this show was able to be deep, emotional, but still had some humor to it. A lot of humor to it.
Yeah.
You know,
Mayor's mother.
Yeah.
Like, Mayor's mother's so funny. But I like that as well. You needed that in this show because, again, it showed a bit of realism. You know, life isn't always gloomy and who's the murderer. You know, even when there is a murder going on, I'm sure detectives have funny mums sometimes. So
yeah, I love Zabel. Obviously, I love everything about Zabel. To be fair,
yeah, perfectly played character.
Yeah,
I thought it was so good.
Evan Peters is just such a phenomenal actor. Obviously, coming from American Horror Story, where he's done, I think, pretty much every series apart from one.
Right.
You know, so at least 8 or 9 of those, and he's just such a phenomenal actor, and he brings a lot to the role. And he's now into that phase where, because before he was always a young guy, you know, he was always casted as a young kind of college kid, whatever.
Yeah.
But now he's into that phase where he's starting to get those bit more mature roles given to
him.
Yeah. And he's able just to deliver some really nice understated performances, you know, with this. And in this, he did an absolute blinder. It was also nice seeing Guy Pearce as well.
Yeah, and not turn out to be the killer, because you think a big name like that, what's he doing in the town? He's too nice.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, he's just a nice guy. You know, so
yeah,
that was a relief.
I'll touch upon, because obviously you mentioned some of the other characters that obviously put in this kind of thing, and I guess that's, you know, when you said that, and obviously when I thought about it earlier, that's when I'm thinking this was probably the best way for them to go. And I think, you know, the ex-husband would have been far too obvious, and
and really drawn out, and
the priest, I'm with you. It was just like, nah, we don't want that. We don't want that kind of thing. You know, I did feel that they were setting up Dylan, or at least Dylan, to have involvement with it. You know, like, you know, maybe he knew, maybe he had, just because of that scene. This is the thing, they were so good at doing these kind of establishing scenes very early on. Like the scene where you saw Dylan and Erin argue. I think it was either episode 1, episode 2, perhaps.
I think she died in one. I think she died at the end of one, didn't she, Erin? So it must have been episode 1.
It must have been, the first episode then, where they were arguing, obviously, about the child needing
the ear surgery,
and obviously him not wanting to pay for it.
Yeah,
and there was a lot of tension built up around that. Even obviously, Erin had confided in her friend, and Dylan obviously told all his friends. And it did go, and the fact that it happened, there was obviously the bullying issue, basically, that stemmed from it, from obviously the party, and it felt very much like someone at the party must have known.
Yeah.
But like I said, they swerved kind of out and away from this. And yeah,
I was going to say, let's get to our first comment quickly. So I'm guessing Maria Casey, if I'm saying it wrong, sorry, but thank you for joining us on the after party. They say, I like that it was about the relationships and choices / healing, but wouldn't call Mr. Colin call Mayor again when he noticed his gun was missing after they had just had that person looking in the window. See, this is what I thought was, again, in some ways clever, but in some ways I feel like we've lost kind of a bit of a story here, because it started off, obviously, she gets the phone call from the old guys, and like someone are outside and whatever, set up the cameras and all this stuff, and they kind of teased that. So I like that. I like the fact they teased it. And then his wife dies in a car crash, and you think, oh, this is going to have something to do with it. This is suspicious. And I like the fact it wasn't, because again, it threw us off. But what I didn't get was that when, Mr. Colin calls up and he says to Mayor, oh yeah, I've been forgetting stuff, and it looks like maybe he's, is there something going on here with old age or something like that? He's forgetting his food everywhere, whatever else. And he says, I guess you're supposed to think, like Mayor's thinking at this stage, I think he might be just sadly losing it, and you're talking about a missing, I think it was a cup and whatever else, right? But then he says the gun, but he did say since she died, things have gone missing. So, but that would have been before she died.
Yeah.
The gun would have been before she died. I didn't understand that. I mean, I guess he's a bit of an bumbling old man mixing things up. That was kind of what he was portraying anyway. But that was a bit confusing, because then they were like, this kid's gone. this kid did this weeks ago, like before my wife died. So, but now suddenly, but I guess at the same time, you could say he brought up the cup and then he brought up whatever else it was. Oh, and by the way, my gun. So he's not exactly on the ball when it comes to priorities and what you need to tell the police officer.
Yeah, I think as well they're playing the whole, I guess with obviously his wife's passing, it's that period where you kind of don't know where you are. And obviously if you already have, the memory problems that he has and stuff.
Right. It's probably not right.
It's extra. I guess I can kind of let that. I guess there is a little bit of a hole there, but I'm not too sure whether it's. I think it's something that they're covering up for with the fact that obviously there was just so much kind of going on, and the show actually, to be fair, was quite good at hiding time in general. Obviously a lot of the scenes being at night anyway, and because I found myself kind of just lost in this show anyway sometimes when I was thinking, hey, well, where are we actually at? I think it was the only really episode that kind of brought up majorly for me was when she was meant to meet Richard at the gallery, and obviously that was known that I think it was on a Friday night, and they built up the episode,
who's she going to meet,
leading up to it. But the other days all merged, because obviously Mare was so full on, with this case. I also like the fact in this, actually, to be fair, that almost every kind of episode, Mare had some sort of injury, and obviously she hurt her ankle, didn't she, in the first episode?
Yeah. She loves a limp, that Mare.
Yeah, but the fact that she kind of kept it. Obviously, she was very good at knowing where she was with the limp as the story went on. Obviously, that kind of injury, one of those where, it's bad for the first couple of days and it eases off, but you're still going to have it, and she was good at kind of getting that. But I'm glad also they didn't do anything too kind of out there with these things. Sometimes they can have, situations where it's just too much of a beating. Whereas, obviously, with this, it was... like I said, go back to Zabel, like his murder was brutal. Like it was just like
the way they did that
moment to kind of process that, did they?
Exactly. It was just it was just like it hit him. It went. You're pretty sure you saw it go through his head.
Yeah.
But even then, you're like, wait, what? And there's chaos, and they're running around. And you're scared for the girls. You're scared for Mare. You're thinking, how's it going to work? But your mind, and I think like it would be obviously way more dramatic if you're genuine in that situation, don't get me wrong, but I think they did a very, very good job is what I'm getting at, of capturing the emotion that you would feel if you were there, because you can't mourn Zabel, and you think you saw Zabel, I'm sure, but like every time she almost had a moment to think about it, like there was a bit where she kind of slows down, she starts to look for the girls and desperately opening doors and whatever else. That was like the moment that we started to process and think, wait a minute, did that just happen? And then something big happened to Mare, and therefore it happened to the viewer. The viewer was brought back into, don't think about Zabel, you've got to think about this. And then until, again, with Mare, we look down and see Zabel's body laying there and the blood next to it. And I mean, sometimes I feel like it's wrong to, because for me, that was probably the peak of the show, as far as the shocks and stuff like that. I feel like in these mystery kind of dramas, it's dangerous to peak that early, but I think they did a good job here, because as we've kind of said, it wasn't what this show was. This show was about wrapping other things up in the end. Not that final boom, someone got shot, can't believe it,
Yeah, like with it being, a limited series, so it's 7 episodes, it's not one of those, if this had happened in like a more traditional 15 or 22 episode kind of season arc that these American shows can go for, then like it would have been an issue, because then they would have had obviously probably done a lot of stuff to pad out. But obviously with it happening, obviously only a couple of episodes left to air. And the thing is, well, this was just such a performance-driven piece for Kate Winslet that they were obviously banking on the fact that they had the right actress, doing this. And so when you've got a lead that strong, there, she's able to kind of carry on. And you're right, like I think the ending thing, it had to be about Mare, and that's what we got at the end. She has that closure. And yeah, like I mean, other things that I liked as well was just like, I liked how the supporting characters, A, were really well played, I felt, but B, how they kind of, like you said, they got their own kind of arcs and their own kind of thing, and I think, obviously, and I loved Mare's relationship with her family and how strained it was. Yeah. And it felt very real. And I know a lot of people would feel that is very real. Like, obviously, Mare being a mum of her own to her kids. She's got an ex-husband. Her mum's still about, living with her.
Yeah. Bit of a love-hate relationship with her mum, and difficult with her daughter. Obviously, not to mention the fact that her son had passed away as well, and the strain and that. And I also like the fact that we see Mare change as well. She is willing to accept help. She does kind of take on a lot from her family and from the town she lives in. But yeah, I like seeing that, and I like seeing that journey. The only thing I thought would have been a bit nicer to wrap things up even more in a bow would be as if the mother of her grandson, that was obviously the one struggling with drugs and that, if she apologized to Mare, because I know that it didn't look like Mare needed that, but I just couldn't help but think of that flashback where the son was going mad and Mare was hiding by the toilet, and her son's girlfriend was just harsh, like really horrible, and like Mare could have carried on being that way and could have literally tried to take the grandson away even further and stuff like that. So yeah, I thought that was a bit of a strange one for me, but again, going on that realism, sometimes it doesn't always get wrapped up.
Yeah, I think it's back to what I said about obviously them wanting to kind of leave people kind of still with these kind of questions, it's still with these kind of thoughts, and just sometimes it's just how it is. Like sometimes when someone apologizes to you, they do the whole big gesture, don't they? They're the whole "I'm really sorry, for messing up. Here's a song. Here's this. Here's that." But other people are literally just a case of like, they will just leave you for maybe 3 or 4 days, and then just text you like normal. And then that you just understand that that's their way.
That's your way. Yeah. I get you.
That's their way of just kind of going, okay, I know I've messed up, but I can't bother to talk about it. So here's some funny text or whatever.
Right.
And,
that,
in terms of, this rawness, there is that kind of thing where, both kind of characters here have justification for being angry, being annoyed, being upset. And it's just,
she did frame her for drugs as well, though. So yeah, you're right. That was pretty bad on Mare's part.
So they're both not angels here.
Yeah.
Look, I thought as well, like with these limited series, it's like what's tough about the limited series though is the fact that as you kind of said at the beginning, this most likely is going to be a one and done kind of thing. You could argue they left little bits open, but I think you'd have to unravel something else, I think, in order to sort of continue it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. If they were to do a season 2, because I can't help but want to see another season because I enjoyed it so much. And every time these limited series come on, they're always so good that you think, I need another one. And you hardly ever get them. So yeah, where would you like it to go if they did go with that?
You see, I'm gonna nip it right in the bud now and say I don't think they can. I think the only way they kind of could really is they'd have to do something that would make Mare kind of bad, I guess, in a way. And I don't think that's a show. That there's a show there.
I think they already toyed with that as well, because at the beginning, Mare wasn't a very likable character.
No, she wasn't.
She had her faults, so she definitely had a journey, like we touched on earlier. But yeah, I think you're right. I think they'd have to, because they even touched on it in this. Like, it starts at the beginning with this silly call to these people who, this is my police work, is it? Except for that big case I didn't crack ages ago, but let's forget about that one sort of thing. And then at the end of this one, once this one seems to be winding down, she thinks she's got it solved. Again, the same phone call from the same household, and also the woman on the phone saying, so what was it about the cat and all this kind of stuff? Like, they're the kind of phone calls they get in that police department. So to do a second series where there's another murderer on the loose would be a bit weird as well. So I think they'd have to make it more about, and they did make it a lot about the characters and the family, but they'd have to really go into that, and to a point where they really, really get us massively caring about the characters, because I think there's still room for someone like Siobhan to have a kind of more of a rebellious kind of storyline, because it looked like at the beginning, remember, like, Mare was going, how could you not tell me you were there? Even that was playing in the back of my mind, thinking, is she going to turn out to be a bad kid? You know, like...
Yeah, I think, like, going back to the Broadchurch thing as well, like, Broadchurch Series 2 obviously dealt with the kind of aftermath and the trial of the of Joe, wasn't it? Who... Sorry, another spoiler there.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it, yeah, sorry.
I'm 7 years old now, so, you know, let's...
That's my own fault.
But anyway, the second series doesn't deal with, like, another murder or whatever. It deals with, you know, the trial and kind of everything that kind of comes out, kind of, you know, the reactions of it. And again, you know, I keep using the comparison. I think Broadchurch was, you know, was definitely a kind of performance-driven thing. You know, Olivia Colman in that is just phenomenal. You haven't seen it, but trust me, she is.
Right, I believe you.
You know, Academy Award winner, Olivia Colman. You can never forget that. But yeah, like, you know, in terms of, like, Broadchurch, they didn't deal with, like, another murder, because again, Broadchurch, and it's very similar here because Broadchurch were dealing with, like, obviously a small town, obviously in the south of England,
right.
Where this is dealing with a small town, obviously in the United States. But it's a case of, like, you know, how many kind of, you know, outside of, like, a soap, you know, how many kind of murders going to be in these small towns?
Yeah,
like,
this ain't Albert Square.
Yeah, you know, I mean, EastEnders and Coronation Street, it happens all the time, isn't it? You know, all this stuff happens, but you know, but we understand that soaps like a kind of exaggerated.
It's the nature of the show, yeah.
But you can't.
But this is more This is more realistic. We're praising of how realistic it is. So you're right. If you start bringing in, like, all these kind of spooky murderers, it's just going to be too much. And, like, what do we the comparison with Broadchurch, you say that goes into a trial in second season? What, we're going to see Ryan and Juvie? Like, I don't want to see that. I don't care.
The only way this is going to get a second season, okay, there's a few ways. From a creative standpoint, is if Ryan's confession is not true. Essentially, if that didn't happen, and there's another...
But we've already kind of toyed with that, haven't we? So
yeah, that's
both
the thing, they're going to have
brothers
to do a lot
to
unravel that to get back to that. And then you got the fact that obviously you got Kate Winslet, who A, wasn't cheap, and B, most likely would, you know, has probably moved on to other projects. Obviously, again, she's an Academy Award winning actress.
I mean, part of the appeal for someone like that probably is that you get to do a great TV show, but you're not tied down forever.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, and obviously, you know, with obviously movies and that, you know, now being, you know, back open and stuff. You know, by the way, I'm literally going to be watching Cruella this week as well, so I'm really excited about that. So it's like,
cool.
A case of, like, yeah, so, you know, there's you know, life's going back to movies. So I think there'll be like people like Kate Winslet, she'll get back into movie acting most likely.
Right.
So I think the only thing, so from a creative standpoint, is if they can somehow overturn what they've done, that unravels a lot. From probably Winslet's standpoint, is a case of, like, you know, will she be able to do it? Will she have time to do it? And I think she'll be enticed back if maybe there's a really good script and, again, a really good supporting cast. Which obviously, you know, killing off obviously Zabel, you know, Evan Peters,
that's tough,
fantastic actor, but have to find someone else to, you know, to help
his long lost twin, you know. Touching again on Zabel, actually, I wanted to mention, as I have a nice cider, Zabel's performance, the performance of Zabel drunk was fantastic.
Oh yeah.
You know, him in the bar making fool of himself, being like, "Oh, friends are over there," and kind of because he was quite rigid before that. They both were against each other, and then, like, he kind of forced his hand, basically. You know, he just kind of spilt everything out there, and you got to see who he was in a real kind of like endearing way. It was quite shocking, really, because he just went full force into, this is who I am, and that was really nice to see. Great performance.
Yeah, I thought so too, and I think him, you know, he's kind of with his mum, his relationship was actually quite interesting there. You know, we didn't see too much of it. I mean, the episode really where obviously Mare went on a date with him, or you know, going on a date with him and stuff, and you know, I thought that was quite nicely done, to be fair. That whole kind of arc of them dating without re-dating, and you know, his relationship with his mum, you know, being as it was compared to obviously her relationship with her mum, you know, it was very much night and day. But yeah, I think at first, like, they tried to play. It's the thing with this show, like, you know, the main kind of thing I love about this show is that they tease a lot of the kind of typical things you'd expect. So I was going to say,
like, she's replacing her son. You know, like, it's subtle, and you're like, please don't go down that storyline. But I kind of get what you're doing, but they don't. They do it really well.
Yeah, they did really, really well. And yeah, like that's why I think it's one of those where, as sad as it is to kind of say that don't do another series because it was brilliant, it's like don't do another series because it was brilliant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
you know, and unravel the good work they've done by being, like you said earlier, doing these weird twists that go backwards at a detriment of the show.
Yeah.
The reason why we like it is because it kind of does have this finality to it, I guess. Unless they, I mean, don't get me wrong, they could bring in a new, you know, character who's played by an amazing actor, and you go, wow, like, I mean, so many shows have done it in the past. Season 2, Season 3, a new bad guy comes in, and you're like, wow, that's when that show actually peaked, you know. So they could do something like that.
You have Mare leave the town, but then I think if Mare leaves the town,
are the rest of the cast strong enough to hold that at the moment? I mean, I think they become lovable. I think they're all really nice, like good characters. But
sorry.
If she's not in it,
there's two ways. Sorry. There's two ways you could do it. There's Mare leaving the town, and you follow Mare to a new town.
Oh, right. Okay, gotcha.
Or like you said, like they could also be Mare leaves, and they're dealing with, obviously, you know, the aftermath of Mare leaving and something.
And she's not around to help, and and maybe she has to come back. The old detective comes back. That kind of
you know, and I guess a lot of that depends again. A, creatively, and B, Winslet availability. Like, obviously, Winslet maybe says she would do it, but she can only do like 2 episodes.
Yeah, which would be a good way to cover that as well.
Do they maybe, you know, as being like, you know, she leave, but you know, I just think, you know, I think she's one of those actors where she'd be powerful enough to just be like, we ain't doing another one. Like, we ain't doing, and I think because, you know, the show, and obviously so much of the promotion of the show, it has been about her, you know, and rightfully so, because, you know, she's, you know, a phenomenal actress. That, you know, again, I still kind of have to pinch myself when I kind of think she was in Titanic 25 years ago.
I know,
and to see her going to grow, obviously, you know, well, as an actress, like, you know, from then obviously to now, it's been a phenomenal kind of journey. But it's like, yeah, you know, it's still 25 years since that epic performance she gave, obviously, in Titanic, and, you know, Academy Award winning roles for the Reader, and, you know, youngest Academy Award nominated actress.
She's done all right, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's done all right for herself, and she's British.
Hey!
The Americans are watching this. She's one of ours. She's a Brit. She may probably live in LA now, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, she did very well in this as well. I mean, obviously not being from Pennsylvania, it's hard to fully know, but I felt like the accents were quite well done in this from an outsider's point of view. I thought, especially her, you know, it's easy to forget she's British. So I think she did something well.
Apparently, she was adamant to pick up the, I forget we call it, the exact accent as well, like the exact dialect from the area.
From that,
as well. And apparently, reading up earlier, it's one of the hardest accents to learn. For anyone that obviously who's not from that area, and she's been commended for it, you know, because she's picked up the exact kind of pronunciations of stuff. I guess it'd be the UK equivalent maybe of someone trying to learn, like, you know, I guess like a deep kind of Scottish accent, you know, or like a Cornish accent, something like that, which something which is just so kind of obvious.
Yeah, it's got those little twangs and stuff.
But, you know, I think us Brits in general seem to be good at this, to be fair. And that's why so many Americans think that all these actors and actors are Americans.
American,
but no, she is British.
Yes.
And,
make it known. So, something else I felt a bit weird about this was just in this episode realising her name's Mary Ann. I don't know if they mentioned that before.
I think they did.
Her mum said Mary Ann, and I was like, what?
I think her mum said it in like one of the first 2 episodes.
Right. But that scene though was nice though, where her mum basically said, took things out on you, you know, because you see like, and again, without going too deep and all this, but they touched on some very heavy topics, you know, with like suicide, mental health and things like that, and how that stuff affects your family, and how that, you know, the people's fears of things being passed down. Obviously, that was a big part of the early storyline, whether or not the tick's going to be passed down to, the ticks were in the grandson. Is that a sign of something else? Because her son also had that, and this went this way. And then obviously then we see it all kind of unraveled, her history, you know, the way, you know, a situation with her dad and her mom, like in this episode, again, kind of a nice little bow to it. Before, I think it showed a lot of these little steps, these little scenes where she dealt with something, and then it made sense that she could go up that ladder later on.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so quickly want to touch on a bit more about the Erin's family, really, because you don't really see Erin's dad ever again. Other than, I think, one time they go back to him to ask him questions, maybe on like the 3rd episode, I think it might have been, because obviously he's been put away for attacking Dylan. So that whole storyline, that's heartbreaking. I kind of want to watch back the scene where they go to tell him that Erin's died, because they know what's happened. Both these guys know what's happened, you know? So that'd be interesting to rewatch. But yeah, it felt a bit obvious it was going to be a bit too obvious if it was going to be the other brother, not the one with the family, you know, because he was getting a bit shifty when it was like, oh, she stayed with me for a bit and all that kind of stuff. So I'm glad it didn't go that route. And then I like that, again, we've touched on it already, but Ryan being revealed, it was a nice final twist, because I was how many twists can they do? But John, I mean, John being the dad, obviously this is a kind of real dodgy relationship. I like that the fact that they touched on when you see the scene with him and Ryan, it's assumed that it's he's cheating, basically, and that's what they're talking about. And when I first saw it, I thought, is this kid done something? And then I was like, no, he's done something. But I didn't buy the cheating thing. I didn't buy that at all.
Okay.
So I didn't think he was cheating. I did keep thinking there was something more to it. But they did really well to take it away from the kid, you know? So I did like that. Yes,
I think with Erin's family, you know, this is another example where, like, they're kind of showing that, again, these characters are broken in the day. And, you know, we kind of have to just be okay with that. But I think, obviously, getting rid of, Erin's dad was important in terms of obviously progressing the show in the episode they had left. I think obviously they needed less people connected to Erin to kind of be involved, because otherwise it will become the whole kind of like that family having to obviously get more scenes. And I get why they kind of did that, you know, so early on. But obviously, you know, but seeing that side of grief, you know, and obviously you do often see it, like, I mean, obviously in a lot of other shows you kind of see those characters go through the phases, don't you, where you see the moment, the breaking moment. Is, you know, there's so many kind of integral moments to the kind of shows, isn't there? And one of them is when the family learn that their person, whether it be their daughter, their mum, or whatever, has died, and their initial reaction. And obviously they always flirt with the anger side of things. They show the grief, the crying, the rage, but usually, you know, your gut is to root for obviously the family of the departed, because, you know, they've just lost obviously someone very important to them. But they kind of almost set up Erin's family to not be those people, to not want you to be sympathetic towards them, which is quite an achievement that they made. They made them bad, you know, just so easily.
And they did kind of make that side of the family feel somewhat distant enough as well, so that you wasn't thinking all the time, like you say, every time they are in a scene they're distraught, you know. It was more like, I feel bad for my cousin, you know, like they kind of touched on that, so that you didn't fully go, wait a minute, why are these family members, like, they were more upset for their family members, you know, grief, than they were like, oh, it's secondhand grief for me. But really what was really going on was they were being dodgy, you know, like they obviously had done a few naughty things themselves.
Like I think, you know, Erin's family, again, like, if the more they've been seen as well, I think people would have maybe thought they were to do with obviously this murder too, you know. But with them not being obviously seen that much, you know, it kind of did kind of aid that part of the story, I'd argue. I mean, you know, like, there was a lot of cliches amongst that family though, with the dad obviously being alcoholic and seemingly kind of violent and, you know, abusive obviously towards her. You know, and I guess like, you know, some of that was a bit, obviously there's some very uncomfortable topics that happened within that family. And again, like, going back to the question, obviously there was to be a second series, like they could expand more on that side of things. But then with Erin being dead, it's like it's going to be very, very difficult, I guess. But yeah,
they blew a lot of things early, like we said, like Zabel died, because even Erin, like in that episode, I was gutted when she got beat up by the bullies. I felt for her so much, and then they killed her, and I was so shocked because I was like, isn't she like one of the main characters? You know, like I was really shocked by that, and I felt like they did it very well. And again, it's another thing where they can only really do that, I think, on a like they can punch you really hard and really fast because it is a limited series. You know, like
exactly.
They can be like, she's dead. Yeah, didn't we made you feel sorry, didn't we? Real quick, boom, she's dead. That's why you felt for her so much, because we ain't got a lot of time. You know, that's kind of what they did there. But then even at the end though, like, because you do see, like, she's carrying this on as a relationship with her, I guess it'd be, I kept saying uncle, but I guess it would be like a second cousin or something like that. But either way, it's her dad's cousin. It's dodgy, right? Anyway, so she's doing that, and like they show that they find a photo, obviously, where she's happy in bed, and the kid feels distraught as his family's getting split up. Your dad's a loser, mate. Just stay away from your dad anyway, because he's done this before, but he's gone younger this time and closer to home. Anyway, but the fact that I don't know if you picked up on it, I think this is the case, but DJ's real name is Dylan John, as in the dad you think it is and the dad it really is. That's the kid's name. Oh. Like when they showed on the you know, when they went for the ear thing, and she was like, is these information correct? I think that's what it said, because I saw both those names. I think. I'm pretty sure. If we're wrong, someone in the comments, I'm sure will let us know. But I feel like it was almost a nod of, if you looked closer, the girl was silly enough to give things away. Like she was telling us John is part of this baby somehow.
Yeah, and that was creepy. That's creepy as hell. Like, I mean, you know, again, it's hard because obviously once a character has departed the show, or, you know, Erin obviously being, you know, murdered by this point, it's hard because you don't want to obviously stick the knife in further, I guess, so to speak. Yeah. But obviously, yeah, like, you know, there's definitely a story that Erin could have told, you know, about this, had she obviously, you know, been alive for it. And yeah, you know, not saying that obviously, yeah, look, don't get me wrong, like, a boyfriend was still scummy, but it's a case of like, you know, there would, if obviously he knew about obviously what was happening, then it's a case of like, yeah, like it's messed up, I guess. But,
and then they also had the bit, obviously, where he was going after the journals. He was chasing her best friend down in the car, and you're thinking, why has he suddenly turned like this? And his new girlfriend was being like, where did you go that night? So they started putting that doubt back in again. But what I liked about this episode, because I was writing it in my notes, and what did I say? Dylan was mean for no reason then, really. But then later on they explained, no, he wasn't. He just wanted his parents to kind of like, oh yeah, of course he has a reason why he wants to hide who the real father is, because he doesn't want that connection made. He wants it to remain a secret. And yeah, so I thought that was really good, because I ended up with a lot of questions of, but why would this character do this? And I actually thought, once she killed Zabel, once we found out the girls that were hidden in the bar had nothing to do with Erin, and once you found out who killed Erin, which so we thought at this point, I was like, what can they really tell us in this episode? Like, because within 10 minutes it felt like, all right, what's next? But it was so good that they did kind of yeah, just all these little seeds that you'd kind of forgotten about, or kind of thought were loose ends that were annoyingly not tied up. They started to just kind of tie them up. Yeah.
No, it was done. It was all done very well. Like, you know, this episode, this whole series, to be fair, I think there wasn't really a dud episode in this whole run. No. I think maybe episode 3 was it. I think wasn't as strong, maybe, or episode wasn't as strong, I think, as like the first 2, but it wasn't bad. But you know, I think again, like, you know, this is the thing. I would actually choose to have more of these limited series, to be fair, over these series that go on for years and years and years and years and years. Yeah. Because I think, particularly with obviously how Hollywood write these kind of shows, where it's obviously big teams, isn't it? Usually teams of writers who kind of write this stuff. I think it's just, you end up just having that end goal, but you get so far from it, and then it gets to a point where the show either gets cancelled, or, you know, actors leave, or whatever it might be. Yeah. And they didn't end up rushing back to that ending plan. Whereas with this, is the case of, look, we've got these actors, this is our cast, this is our crew, we've got
we know where we're going with it. We don't have to make it up as we go along and get outside influence of like season 2. Turns out sometimes that's great, you know, that, you know, for example, again, not to go too many spoilers in, but in Breaking Bad, there are a lot. The creators come out and said Jesse wasn't a long-term character originally, you know. So, and obviously people loved him. So sometimes it works out in their favor, hearing what the audience think. But it must have been good for them to, like you say, just literally go like, this is what we're doing, this is the cast, this is how long we've got them, this is the plan. Speaking of which, as far as production goes, they shut this down during COVID and then come back and finished it. I mean, what an amazing job. I don't think you could tell from watching it. I think it was so well done, like even down to the fact that it must have been months apart before certain characters came back and stuff like that. So they did a really good job of hiding that as well. What was it about this show, this episode even, that you initially did think when you texted me earlier saying you weren't too pleased? Why was it that you weren't at the time then, before you processed it?
Yeah, it's just because I think it's just because it paralleled Broadchurch quite a lot. And obviously Broadchurch was at the time, again, you know, I think it's like 7 years ago now. But at the time it was like, you know, it was a very brave position to do what they did.
Right.
And it was a very shocking kind of reveal, kind of how it happened. And obviously Broadchurch became this kind of phenomenon over here where, you know, you said you didn't watch it.
No, I didn't watch it. No.
Yeah. So like, it's one of those where at the time, you know, it was such a shocking kind of thing, you know, kind of reveal. I do actually recommend you watching it, though, by the way.
I know now, mate. You killed that for me.
Even though, because the thing is, they showed Broadchurch again during lockdown. Obviously, when ITV ran out of programs, they showed it again, like in full, on a weekly basis as well.
Okay.
They took it off ITV Player and they put it back on. You had to watch it every single week.
Right.
It was really enthralling, but they showed it over, you know, the first series anyway. And yeah, it's still a great series to watch, even if you know what happened. There's still really little things you're going to find out, and you know, so yeah, that's the Broadchurch spirit out of the way. But yeah, what I didn't like was I felt that being the kid, I just had that kind of like, oh, why? Because usually in these situations, like I said, you're after the closure, you're after the kind of he's the ultimate horrible bad man. And now we're going to go to jail for many years. Yeah. But then, like, once I processed it, I realized that's not what the show was about. That's not the purpose was here.
Yeah.
The purpose was Mare's healing, Mare's ultimate story. And so I'm like, okay, this actually works better for Mare, because Mare, you know, she needs this redemption, because obviously having been a local hero years ago, and then obviously having the initial kind of heat thrown on her, you know, from not solving the first case, you know, if she had then sentenced someone, you know, been the person to, you know, sentence someone to life basically in prison or death sentence, so it's America, let's face it, they would have got a gun out.
That kid's not safe.
You know, I think that would have just been bad on her part. But the fact that, you know, she's had to deal with obviously something which is very traumatic, and it is, again, it parallels her boy too, I guess. Like, this is the thing, like, you know, there's that nice, I guess it's not nice, but it's that kind of touch where obviously she lost her child. And so having now to deal with a child who's done this, you know, because he's a child, so he's 13.
Yeah. I love that, like, sensitivity of Mare coming into the room and just being like, and then putting him in a car and be like, oh, you're going to get there, you're going to call your mum. Like, you could see the emotion in, like, the performance. And, like, yeah, and you got to think, like, that's supposed to be obviously her best mate's kid, and she's probably seen this kid growing up. She can understand why this kid, you know, is young, kind of not fully processed mind, you know, hasn't kind of can't really understand what's going on and stuff like that. It's
a really rough one, this, because you go through a lot of emotions with this kind of stuff. Like, I mean, you know, over here in the UK, we had a case back in the 90s now, actually, with the baby, James Bolger, the baby, the kid who got abducted by the two, I think they were about 11 and 12-year-olds. And they murdered him on the rail tracks, and it was absolutely horrendous. But then, you know, you're so used to these crimes that happen, you know, being the typical people that you associate with these crimes, you know. But then when you know, and with the media, they kicked up a massive storm, and you know, you think it's a horrible crime. Well, murder's horrible anyway. But then you got murder of a child, then you got murder of a baby, you know, in a pram, you know, and it's horrible. But then when you fast forward and you're having to see these two kids, they were at the time, you know, in shackles, and you know, getting called every name under the sun and people spitting at them in the street. You're like,
yeah,
well, they're just kids. Like, they're
it's
people
surreal,
who
yeah.
they should, you know, they should be at school, like learning, you know,
Yeah,
about,
it's I mean, it's several horrible situations in one, isn't it? You know, it's like I mean, like say with murder, like that happens with like the family of the murderer have to suffer, and now the family of murderer of children. You know, like and you know, it's just it's so surreal because like in this, yeah, Laurie is like fuming at her friend, being like, "Why did you just not let this one go?" But like you say, Mare she can't do that. And then I mean, it wouldn't have been like she let some other guy, like a killer on the loose, is out there. It's just a kid, but this kid could have grown up and done some more things. So you kind of do have to kind of get on top of it as quick as you can, no matter if it was an accident or not. You went there and you put a gun in a girl's face, you know. So that what led you to do that isn't a stable kind of way of thinking, and you shouldn't be doing that anyway. So these issues need. So again, it is one of those kind of. It's so intricate, the little things. But I'm glad you kind of got that moment between the two friends again, though, like embracing and stuff like that. Because I also thought, again, another one of those things where it's like they flirted with something. I really thought she was going to say to Mare, just because you lost your son didn't mean you have to take away mine. Like, I really thought she was going to say that. It seemed like the perfect line to say. This character would say that. But they didn't. And I was kind of like uncomfortably waiting for it because it felt obvious. And I was like, I don't want her to say that, but I think she will. But then she didn't. And I'm glad. Again, I feel like it was one of those shows that make you think things. And then when they don't happen, you're like, okay, cool. I'm glad that didn't happen.
Yeah, like I think obviously you're having the scene at the end, like with them kind of obviously making up, like that was important to show that obviously, you know, they had a long-lasting friendship, and in these small towns, like, you know, these friendships, they are even more amplified. I'm guessing, because, you know, essentially, you know, everyone knows each other, and it's so like, you know, you can imagine that those towns being those places where, you know, when someone runs out of milk, like
you won't escape it. You won't escape. Like she will bump it again. Same as when she goes into the store and the woman is the one serving her. And I haven't found your daughter. You know, like they played on that. And then in that same location, the dad of Dylan's girlfriend who comes in going mad at Mare. And again, that's another situation where later on, it's just understandable. That's his daughter, you know, and he's like, Mare, you know me, you know, like that. And she's like, I've got to do my job. And then later on, again, he's apologizing as well.
Well, the thing is, you could argue in a way that like this whole kind of show series was about dealing with anger and dealing with grief, basically. You know, and we saw obviously Mare deal with her grief in, you know, basically every episode, and there was always something for her to have grief over. You know, and obviously, you know, whether it was the loss of her son, whether it was obviously not solving the first case, you know, then obviously the murder of Zabel, and then obviously this whole kind of situation, and like, you know, it showed that there's different ways that people do this and deal with this. And obviously, like I said, you had obviously DJ's dad go crazy and, you know, end up obviously in prison.
And then Guy Pearce's character not even getting that mad, that like literally going, I know Zabel's important to you. Even like he could have been like, wait, I know he's dead, but you chose him, you know, because she came clean about that, you know. So it was a good way of like showing, like you say, like different characters doing things in different ways.
But again, I think with that, you know, with the Richard, Guy Pearce, he, that was an example again of like showing that this show wasn't going to go down that direction of being this kind of like, romantic kind of love kind of thing. And again, like being at that phase of their lives that they're in, I'm guessing they're playing up that they're both in their late 40s, early 50s kind of thing. Probably more like late 40s, to be fair. And it's like the case of like, if it was like a teenage thing, then that's when you care. He probably does, maybe does care, maybe doesn't, but it's like, in the day, it's like, you're at that phase of your life where you're not going to get that many more chances. You know what I mean? And it's a case of, look, like, it could be a case of like, okay, Mare, she went on a date with someone else, fair enough, but what's the alternative?
Yeah, it was good to have the good, like, he was a mature, nice character. It didn't have to be like, I think if it turned out he was the murderer, I would have been a bit like, really. Like, because everyone's like, oh, he's too, there's something about him. But I'm glad there wasn't. I really am. That it puts it in that realism of like, not every cop's love interest who's too good should have to turn out to be the bad guy. It doesn't. And like you say, not every love interest in a show has to be like, it's all about that, you know, like it's a big part of the story. It was a background part of the story for most of it. Like he was gone for about 2-3 episodes.
Yeah. But he didn't stick about it. Boss man.
He's gone again.
Get a quick contract, and that was it. I think. Interesting that they cast him, and I didn't know this as well. The actress who played Siobhan, she's Australian as well, isn't she? She's Australian.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, she's Australian.
Oh,
which I found quite interesting. So there's like two Aussies.
She looks it now that you've said it.
Yeah, I got. Again, probably for the wrestling channel this one, but I've got young Rhea Ripley vibes. That's literally how I imagine Rhea Ripley would look like.
Speaking of the wrestling, did you notice that Arian's best friend was wearing WWE pajamas in the first episode?
I did.
For those that don't know, me and Lucas are also part of the wrestling channel. If you're a wrestling fan, check out RN Pro Wrestling, our wrestling channel, and we cover a lot of stuff at Rebellious Noise, clearly. But yeah, I get what you're saying, young Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, all that kind of vibe, like, and again, also I'm touching it. Even though by touching on it, I'm now actually doing what's against the point I'm saying. But they did this obviously. They did the same relationship with obviously Siobhan, and like, but it wasn't a major thing. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It didn't dominate the show. It didn't. It is. And it's so pleasing that we're at the phase and that stage now where this can just happen. And
it was almost like those characters have already dealt with if there were reservations, if there were rumors in the town, because it's a small town and stuff like that, like it was almost like we'd already got there. Siobhan's already with the girl, and it's more about the fact that she's not anymore. She's with another girl. It was more like literally, that's what it was about. It weren't about the fact that, like, say, it was a same-sex relationship.
Yeah, and I thought it was done. It was done really well. It was done with taste. Like it can be hard for a story like that not to kind of be the kind of, but it shows, to be fair, how far we've come with television over the past kind of 20 years or so. When you think that, again, a bit controversial saying her name now, but like Ellen DeGeneres, when she had her show, when she came out as lesbian and kind of did that was like a massive, like, oh my God, like we can't believe there's like this show. And obviously stuff like Will and Grace, that kind of, becoming the first sitcom with gay characters as part of it, and that kind of being its kind of ticket to be on the air for as long as it was on, despite being a good series, I felt. But also that caveat of like, well, yeah, but it's the first gay series, so obviously they're not going to cancel it, like,
right,
like straight away.
Yeah.
But I think we're just in a situation now where it's like, if a writer wants to write a story with characters, they will write the characters however they kind of wish.
Yeah.
And maybe, again, like maybe it wasn't. Because I remember reading, like, sometimes, like when they're casting for shows or roles or whatever, they leave certain characters' gender, unassigned essentially, so that essentially that character could have been a male, could have been a male relationship. But if they cast someone they think has chemistry with the person, they will go, okay, you're now a gay couple, and it's like, okay,
right,
Because I guess it allows different story options, you see, and it allows for obviously a more natural casting process, based on what you've got. And if you've got, and yeah, I think with some, obviously if it's a major story, like, I guess that, yeah, you're going to have to obviously cast that pretty thing. But obviously with this thing, obviously a minor kind of side story. Yeah. One of those where it really wouldn't have mattered if the character was gay or not gay. It wasn't entangled to what happened, but I felt it was done quite well.
They did a good job of not making it distracting, basically. Not being like, hey, this is going to be a thing. This is a point. It's like, there wasn't the point, was it? Like I say, it was just okay. It was more about Siobhan is a young girl who's going through some troubles with relationships, basically, and at the same time dealing with her mom and losing her brother.
And obviously, that just that sentence you said there, it makes you realise that the weight this all takes on the younger members of the family here. Well, obviously, fair enough, Mare, she's been through it and we feel for her. Don't get me wrong, but, she has kids who, they're going through it too. They're living through this. And they're kind of living, in a way, they're living behind the grief because, Mare, obviously, yes, like that, that was her son she lost, and that's really sad and shocking. And that's where, automatically your sympathetic mind goes to, oh, the mum, she lost her son. Then the daughter's lost her brother.
Yeah. That scene where she says it should have been you, as in like it should have been you that found him. Oh. What a scene! You know, played so well, because you could tell it's like it's a thing that had been built up, you know, and I think it was like like you say, young people having to deal with it, and it's like a pressure cooker waiting to go off, because she needs an outlet, and then again, May had the exact same thing with her own mum in that restaurant, you know.
Yeah, so it all kind of ties back into this. It's, you know, in a way, like, obviously, you know, in life, our job basically is to kind of try to be a better version of our parents, or in some kind of way, or you know, in some kind of way, you're always competing with your parents to some sort of extent, even if it's just subtly.
Well, like Ric Flair and Charlotte Flair. You don't have to always be about wrestling, though.
Again, another one for the Wrestling Channel. Please subscribe to that. After you finish watching this, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, you know, I mean, like, you're always kind of trying to be a better version of them, you know, in your own kind of way. You know, the same thing, you've got siblings, you're always, you know, there's always that kind of minor competition, you know, that you have with it. And I think it just shows that obviously these things are deep rooted now. So obviously the problems that obviously May's having with her mum, and now what Siobhan's going to have with her, what if Siobhan has children, that child's going to have.
And maybe it won't be a one-off, mate. Maybe it's going to be about 65 seasons where we go through the entire family.
Well, they've got a really strong supporting cast, but I think, like, I would still stick with my thing of, I think if Winslet doesn't want another series to exist, it won't exist. And I think she's a powerful enough name in Hollywood to be able to go, no more. We'll move on, we'll do something else. And hopefully we see some of the other cast pop up into other stuff. I'll be really interested if they, you know, do some more kind of stuff. Obviously, HBO been great for this kind of stuff, you know, lately. But you know, like, this limited series over the last few years have really, really, really good. And I guess like, obviously Netflix, well, they do it a bit differently, where they seem to kind of have a series and then they just say it's cancelled. Like, you know, they just, and so that's how you get the limited series of Netflix. They just cancel you the day you finish production for the first series. Like,
we've had enough of this one now.
Shit.
Moving on.
But yeah, no, look, I thought it was overall, you know, like, just to wrap this up, like, I thought this was a really good series, a really strong series, with not much to really kind of, you know, kind of complain about too much. My initial assessment of the ending, you know, I've now come to accept it, and I'm happy with it. I think it's the one that does wrap up more stuff, as this is looking likely to be a one and done, you know, one series, limited series done. I thought the performances in it were really brilliant by, by all the cast, really, the supporting cast as well. I liked how it felt real. Like, it felt like this is conversations that would exist, you know, and it's very hard to get that, I think. And I think, obviously, you know, I'm guessing as, you know, the weeks come out, we might see some more stories about the production and behind the stuff, but I'm guessing there was maybe the odd kind of ad-lib thrown in here and there, and someone like Winslet would have, you know, should have the kind of room here to kind of maneuver some of the lines and some of the verbiage that you hear, because, you know, it all sounded so good. You know, and it's great seeing such a diverse range of actors kind of in this too. You know, so overall, big thumbs up from me. And I'll be interested to see where the cast to go series wise, you know, into new series or whatever, you know, following this.
Cool. Well, with that being said, I'll bring in the water cooler once more, and I'll say, what do you think will be the water cooler topic tomorrow then? Are people going to be basically saying this was a successful series? Are they going to be asking for a new one? Do you think people are going to understand? I'm not trying to say we are so clever. We see it for what it is. It is a realistic show. But, you know, are there going to be people saying, to the ending, because maybe they don't process it the way that we have, and they see it as could have been more?
The initial reaction to it so far has been quite strong, quite positive, you know, from critics and from, you know, the limited stuff I've had a chance to see, obviously, before, obviously, you know, from the US side.
Because obviously the Americans, I didn't go on Twitter at all today because I was scared of seeing it had been trending or something, you know. But yeah, how are people taking it then?
Yeah, I think people overall, the reception has been positive to the ending. I think the water cooler moment, for you know, going on is, but I think around what we've talked about tonight, like where we're talking about how, you know, it is a show that I think there will be some people that will be frustrated with it not ending with a bow, happy.
Yeah.
But I think the talking point is similar to that of Nomadland to an extent, where you're kind of just having to accept what you've watched, and you still got further processing. And there'd be that discussion of like, oh, will there be more series like this? And I think we're ending up going towards this more and more, because I think, you know, people who are making films and making TV shows are assessing that, look, some people actually want to watch stuff that isn't all wrapped up nice and neatly. In terms of the actual moment, I guess people are going to be talking about the reveal of the killer. Like, that is, I think with these shows, that's always the go-to kind of thing, isn't it? Like, if people, you know, because, you know, if people hadn't watched it, or if they had if they had missed maybe episodes 4 and 5 because they're idiots for some reason, and then obviously decide to watch episode 7, you know, that's gonna be a talking point of like, okay, we came from episode 1 where this happened to episode 7, and I think overall the reception will be positive. I think the negative side might be those people who think that perhaps it is a little bit of a cop out having the teenager kind of be this.
I think that's what I'm thinking as well. I worry that people might be, because part of me is like that as well. But then there's the other side, like we've kind of obviously touched on, that that's fine though. It doesn't have to be the big bad killer, you know. And the show, it wasn't that kind of show. Because I even saw people talking before this about rumors of like, what if it was just, well, basically how it was. What if it was just an accident, and the story is more again about the town and its characters, rather than who killed Aaron, you know, like, and we gotta get him. And I think it was definitely going more that way in the last few episodes anyway. But I think I do worry that people might not get it in that sense, that they might think it, because it's a cop show as well, you know, it is a drama, and it's quite gritty the way it's filmed and stuff like that. So I think you might expect something like that, but realistically, that's not what this show was, and and I'm okay with that. I'm glad they dealt with it the way they did. Anyway, Lucas, thank you very much for joining me here. It's been good. It's been quite the after party. If you like the look of this and you've seen Line of Duty, because there was a lot to talk about there, check out the Line of Duty after party that we did as well a few weeks back, obviously when season 6 finished. We'll be doing more of these. If you've got suggestions, hit us up in the comments. Follow us at Reb Noise for the main Rebellious Noise stuff, and also RN Screen 1 on Twitter if you want to get in touch and let us know what you would like to see us cover. Lucas will be back with more episodes of Film You In coming up, which is Lucas's show where he tells you all about the latest goings on in film, TV on the big and small screen. And we'll have a lot more kind of general reviews coming up on the channel as well. So again, if you like what you see, please subscribe, and we'll be hitting you up with some more fresh content, almost as fresh as a nice piece of popcorn. Anything else you want to say, Lucas, before we get out of here?
No, just subscribe.
Good. Now climb that ladder. We can end really peacefully as well. It doesn't have to be a big murder or a big reveal. That's it. Okay, let's go calm. All right, guys. See you later. It's been good. Subscribe.
Tickets, please. Once you have subscribed to this channel, please make your way into Screen 1 for all things film and TV from Rebellious Noise. Screenings will include exclusive interviews, fun reviews, and in-depth features, as well as the latest news from the big and small screen. So grab yourself a bag of popcorn, sit back, relax, and enjoy the shows.
There you go.